Hello and welcome to your astrological vibrations for Sunday, April 27th, 2025 by Gaia Blooming. I'm Mimi and our energy mantra for today is I value the divine that I find in nature. I'm laughing because this is about the 5th or 6th time that I've tried to start this video, and as I'm recording, we're deep in the Mars-Pluto, and I just had my Mars-Pluto moment. Which may not seem major, but it is. I recorded 14 minutes scope for this, and poof, it disappeared. It came up 00, no video when I went to upload it. So here we are, and hopefully I'll do as good of a job as I did the first round. So today we have a new moon in Taurus. The new moon is happening at 12:31 p.m. Pacific time. Now, it's interesting because while tonight, Saturday night when I'm recording, very soon, we're reaching the peak of this Mars-Pluto opposition. But today, or Sunday, the moon is going to activate this Mars-Pluto opposition, and we're going to find that Mars and Pluto are not that far away. So the moon will square Mars and square Pluto at 6:16 a.m. and 6:38 a.m. So they're still going to be pulling that opposition, and we've got a little bit of a challenge in the morning before we have this new moon. Now, I have to say that a new moon in Taurus is so fertile. This is one where we can really plant our seeds. As I was sitting here looking at the song Sowing the Seeds of Love, which is probably one of my favorite songs just because I love the premise of it, that song popped into my head. So we're sowing seeds of love in this new moon in Taurus. However, that doesn't mean that we might not feel some of the struggles of spring. Some of the struggles of spring could be a plant trying to break through like the outer parts of the seed and struggle to reach the light, or a little chick trying to break through the egg, or even a butterfly making its way out of a chrysalis. All of these things can actually be challenging and somewhat hard, and yet we can't do it for them. That it's part of the challenge that actually strengthens them. So keep that in mind. I will keep that in mind as I do this scope again in these energies, that the challenge is part of the equation. So if you are feeling challenged in the morning, and if you are feeling challenged in this energy, part of this is to help strengthen you for your journey, for the manifestation of your intention. Now, we have another element in this new moon, which is very interesting. So like I said, we have Mars and Pluto squaring the moon earlier in the day, and then the closest connection that this moon has to any other cosmic element is actually Lilith. We have Black Moon Lilith hanging out in Scorpio, and I actually feel like Lilith is the remedy to this T-square fixed cross that we have, because, you know, these energies, we have this intention with Taurus, this intention, this vision that we want to grow, that we want to create, that we want to produce. And Mars and Leo can support it with the heartfelt energy, but it can also feel disheartened. We can feel disheartened at times. We can feel not courageous. We can feel daunted, you know, by this, by our inner child, by our own wounding. Pluto is a process. Pluto in Aquarius can help empower our vision, but we can also feel puny in our vision, and we can feel compounded by energetic, vibrational projection by others. So here's Lilith as the remedy. And Lilith as the remedy is interesting because Lilith energy is soul aligned. To me, this is the highest premise of Lilith, is Lilith would feel her yes and her no and honor that so profoundly. And it made people mad because she didn't necessarily go with the program. And you know who else did not necessarily go with the program? Jesus, which pops up in our Sabian symbol. So we'll get there to that. But Lilith energy may be the remedy to some of these challenges that we are feeling and experiencing in this energy. So Lilith in Scorpio can feel that desire, can feel that soul calling, and knows that sometimes boundaries are needed to honor the yes and the no. And so keep that energy in mind today as you are sowing your seeds of love, as you are moving through whatever feels like the suppression, and moving through the projections. So let's look at the Sabian symbol. I actually think that this is what happened before, because I had to click on the Sabian symbol part of my screen, and I feel like my camera thing didn't like it, and so it just was like, no, you don't get to have this. So the Sabian symbol for 7 Taurus, which is where this new moon is the woman of Samaria at the ancestral well, which I guess is a story in the Bible. It says it's part of the Christ mythos. So early in his ministry, Jesus meets a Samaritan woman at the ancestral well. The woman belongs to a tribe despised by the Jews. Jesus was a Jew. And moreover, she was unmarried and therefore just a terrible person according to society at that time, which is interesting, right? And it's to this woman that Jesus revealed that he is the Messiah. He says, I am he. And it's a revelation he doesn't bestow on like almost anybody else. So very interesting. I don't want to read this whole thing because there's a lot here and it is interesting and it's worth reading. But here's Jesus going against the rules, talking to a woman of another tribe, a hated one, and then at that, an unmarried woman. Gasp. Like, terrible, right? And, excuse me. So it says, but to the woman of Samaria, who in her openness to love's urging had already repudiated any narrow subservience to the old order, Jesus could reveal his function. The highest meets the lowest. The lowest is freed from traditional bonds and open to love. And the creative future descends first to that which has become chaos. An old order is never open to a new revelation until it's accepted disorder in the name of the power which subsumes all forms of order, which is love. Sowing the seeds of love. So basically, this is saying, like, this is part of creating a new world, but it's creating a new world by breaking the old rules. And a new quality of being is revealed, which renders the old pattern obsolete. And I think if we look at what's happening in the world right now, this is a part of that. But it's the love piece that really gets it. It's the love piece, but it's also I'm probably the only person who's like, Jesus, Lilith, same, right? Because they march to the beat of their own soul. And that's hard to do when all of your conditioning is like, follow this rule, do things the same as everybody else, do this, do this, do this. And so it's a reminder for all of us, especially as we face the challenges, rather than let the challenges win, or rather than follow what anyone and everybody else is doing, is to listen within for that calling as you sow your seeds of love, as you plant your intentions, as you work on your manifestation for your beautiful new world. Now, the Sabian symbol ongoing at 8 degrees Taurus is a sleigh on land uncovered by snow. And the key word is the value of future-oriented imagination as part of the unfoldment process. And so, lights back on. I think that we need to remember this in all of this as well. Where can we have that future imagination and include our inner Lilith, include our soul in the piece of the puzzle? So this astro energy is very, very interesting. It's definitely not easy. It's definitely going to move us through some of that energy, some of that challenge. It's also not going to happen overnight. Patience is the top of the cards. And this is so Taurus, right? Taurus reminds us things grow slow. I have to tell you, I might have told you already, but I'm telling you again. I planted ashwagandha seeds, and all of the other seeds, little by little, all sprouted in this little, seed starter thing. And they hadn't started. And I was like, I might not have done it right, blah, 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 doubting. doubting Thomas, if you know that phrase. I was a doubter of the seeds, and I told somebody who was bringing me moringa seeds, I was like, oh, I planted ashwagandha, they haven't sprouted yet, I'm probably going to try again, but you can have some of the seeds if you'd like. And I get home, bloop, there's those little sprouts. It took them 2 months, maybe? Well, yeah, because I planted at the beginning of like March, and we're to the end of April, so almost 2 months. It took these little seeds to sprout. Patience. It might take even longer for your seeds of love to sprout. It's okay for it to take the time. It's okay for things to take the time that they take. Just don't give up on your vision, and don't give up on that soul calling in this energy. So let's look and see what else we have going on card-wise. It's so funny because I'm totally bringing this to you in a very different way than my first version of the scope. So, patience, like I said. And the day in and of itself is not without its challenge. We've got the suppression. So again, some of this Mars, Pluto stuff may be coming up. Maybe some old things that you feel daunting, that make it hard for you to honor the calling of your soul and that calling of what you are called to sow in your seeds of love, right? We've got some of the past stuff coming up, moving through, that also may be holding us back. So the patience process, and also just being conscious, bringing your awareness, is going to help with any of these energies. The projection, the places where you feel like the carpet ripped out, or the floor ripped out from underneath you, whatever it is, those kinds of projections, the past, any and all of that, so that we can connect to the vision and the world that we're creating. I'm going to go with these next. We've got the change card. I have the tiger in there, right? Oop, throwing it. Change says, when the ego finally sees the utter madness to trying to control everything, you come to a sacred crossroads in your own evolution. All you can really do is like follow your heart and listen to your yeses and nos and like honor that. Divine love also showed up, speaking of these sowing the seeds of love. And divine love says, when you offer everything to the divine with detachment, you begin a love affair with spirit. And finally, we've got our Inquire Within cards for this new moon. Look to nature for healing. Today, with this new moon, please just spend a few minutes out in nature, being inspired. Seek inspiration in unusual places, being inspired by nature, because you are nature. And as you spend time in nature, it can inspire your power of creation and your consciousness and all deep and beautiful, divine and wonderful parts of yourself to help support you in this very fertile new moon. The last thing I want to say is, speaking of Taurus energy is connected to prosperity and abundance. And I want to thank all of you who have been so generous. I love those of you who did this for a reading. And I love those of you who did this just out of the goodness of your hearts. And I love those of you who did it for both of those reasons. So thank you for all of you who have been so generous. That abundance comes back to you. Trust that. So I think I'm going to leave that there for now. Shorter this second time around. Hopefully this will work. Wish me luck. Besides that, you can always book a reading. Email me, mimiclark@gmail.com. And besides that, the better it gets, the better it gets. There's more than enough love in the world for you. You have the power, and may your guiding light be strong, and know that you can trust the process. Namaste.